Well, good afternoon and welcome to the 47th Annual Resource Development Council Annual Membership Luncheon. My name is Lori Nelson. I am Manager of Public Affairs for Hillcorp here in Alaska and the RDC Board President. So welcome. As we know, in each of the industries that RDC represents, safety is paramount. So I'm going to turn the mic over to a member of the Denali staff to give us a brief safety moment on if we have an emergency during today's luncheon. Welcome.
Hello, my name's Nate, Operation Manager. I'm going to give you a quick safety briefing. In the event there's an emergency, the building's alarms and strobe lights will activate. There will be 3 chimes, then an automatic voice will give directions. If the alarm stops, you may remain in the building until further instructed. In the event of an earthquake, please shelter in place under a table or doorway. Once we have assessed any building damage, you'll be directed to exit the building or continue the meeting. If evacuation is necessary, the emergency exits are identifiable throughout the building. Please proceed to the City Hall parking lot on 7th Avenue between F and G Street. Remember, please walk, do not run, do not use escalators or elevators. As soon as the situation is corrected, you'll be readmitted to the center and the continuation of this event. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Nate. And I just want to offer a thank you to the wonderful staff taking such good care of us during today's luncheon. I also appreciate each and every one of you for being here, your support for responsible resource development here in Alaska. The state continues to field blow after blow from the federal administration, and I think it bears repeating a coined phrase by my friend and former RDC director and our DEC commissioner, Jason Bruni. I see you down there, Jason. I'm going to steal this from you for just a moment and just remind folks that we do it better here in Alaska than anywhere else on the planet. By now, most of you have probably noticed that we have an empty seat here at the head table today. It's there to honor Congressman Don Young. Some of you may know it's been a longstanding tradition for RDC to open our annual luncheon with remarks from the longest-serving member of Alaska's delegation in Congress. Sadly, with the congressman's passing earlier this year, that tradition also passes. And so I ask that you please join me in a brief moment of silence to honor the congressman for all Alaska and the Dean of the House, the late Congressman Don Young, his memory and 56 years of dedicated public service to our great state won't soon be forgotten. Thank you. On a more positive note, 2022 marks 47 years of RDC advocacy. I'm proud to say that this organization has been backed by a strong and passionate board of directors since 1975. Earlier today, during our annual board meeting, we elected the 2022 and 2023 board of directors, and I'm happy to announce the return of my fellow officers, and I'm honored to say I was asked to stay on for another term as RDC president. So joining me at the head table today are 2 of my fellow officers, our Senior Vice President, Mike Satry from Hecla, our Vice President, Lance Miller with NANA, and unable to join us today, but also serving as RDC officers are Scott Haberstad with Alaska Airlines and our Treasurer, Anna Atchison from Kinross, Alaska. Also, a matter of board business today was to shore up our executive committee. I'm thrilled to recognize Thomas Mack, CEO of the EAC Corporation, for stepping up to serve on our executive committee. Thomas, are you out there somewhere? I know you are. Thank you. Appreciate your continued commitment to RDC. We're glad to have you. I'm also really excited to present an incredible slate of new board members. And if you could please stand if you're with us today and be recognized as our newest board members for RDC. We have Carrie Ann Baker from Homer Electric Association, Eric Cannon from WSP Golder, Mandy Hawes from Aleut Corporation, Rochelle Lindley with Alaska Kensington Mine, Shannon Martin from the Kenai River Sport Fishing Association, Crystal Nelson from the Bering Straits Native Corporation, Kyle Smith with the Eklutna Inc., and Suzanne Settle with Siri. Welcome. I'd just like to take this opportunity to invite all of the RDC board members in the audience today to please stand and be recognized for your service. Thanks to each and every one of you for your hard work and commitment to this organization. And speaking of hard work, I'd be remiss not to recognize the many elected officials, cabinet members, and political candidates in the audience with us today. Your presence at RDC's annual luncheon speaks volumes of your support and commitment to responsible development of Alaska's natural resources. And for that, we thank you. If you could please stand so we can recognize you today. With that, I'd just like to take this opportunity to remind folks that RDC is a nonpartisan organization that uses opportunities like today's luncheon to feature important issues for our membership. RDC does not endorse individual candidates, nor does sponsorship of our events imply our support or agreement with their positions. We are simply an organization that is willing to roll up our sleeves and work hard with those who are committed to growing Alaska's economy through responsible resource development. I'd also like to recognize our members and sponsors. RDC's work is made possible only through your generosity and the commitment to our mission. A special thanks to today's Denali sponsors that include ConocoPhillips, ExxonMobil, Hecla Greens Creek Mining Company, Hillcorp Alaska, and Nana Regional Corporation. We also greatly appreciate the dozens of gold and silver sponsors of today's event. If you could take a look at your program and the screens above, you'll see it's an impressive list. In total, we have more than 90 distinguished companies from across Alaska's economy and landscape supporting today's event. I think that's amazing. Thank you. While their support and the board's efforts are certainly important, I want to acknowledge the dynamic duo that keep RDC running on track day to day. I'm proud to welcome Layla Kimbrell as our newest executive director. She's now 5 months into the job and seated for her very first RDC annual luncheon. And she is supported by our project manager, Kari Noor, who greeted many of you at the door. I just want to say thank you, Kari, for your tireless work to support RDC's mission. And give a quick shout out to April Cooley, who is our steadfast and bookkeeper extraordinaire. And last but not least, special thanks to the volunteers that gave you a swift check-in today. Some of you may have recognized the infamous Carl Portman is hard to shake and was happy to support our effort today. And with that, we'll get on to our program. I'm pleased to introduce and welcome Alaska's senior senator, Lisa Murkowski, as our keynote speaker. Senator Murkowski is a third-generation Alaskan and our first Alaska-born U.S. senator. She's a senior member of the panels on appropriations, energy and natural resources, health, education, labor and pensions, and vice chairman of the Indian Affairs Committee. Senator Murkowski's colleagues regard her as a leader on energy and resources policy, and she was named the single most effective Republican on those issues in the most recent Congress. Among her recent accomplishments are the opening of the 1002 area in ANWR to responsible resource development, the first modernization of U.S. energy policy in more than a decade, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, which has already brought close to $2 billion to Alaska, and the Alaska Tourism Restoration Act, which allowed cruise ships and visitors to return to Alaska last year. Senator Murkowski is clearly a strong proponent of all types of resource development here in Alaska, and she is certainly a champion of the industries represented here at the Resource Development Council. Please help me welcome Senator Murkowski.
Lori, thank you for the introduction. Thank you for the opportunity to be back with you. What an extraordinary gathering this afternoon as we look at the various sectors of our state's economy that are represented here. I think this is really testimony to the commitment that Alaskans have to not only our broader state's economy, but really what it means when we're talking about our resources, our natural resources. And so it is good to be back with the RDC. Governor, it's good to share the head table with you here. It's also nice to have my friend and former co-worker, Layla Kimbrell, who was my state director for a period of years, but is now RDC's executive director. We miss you, but we know that you're being put to excellent use here, and you're doing great things for our state, so we appreciate that, Layla. I also want to acknowledge the absence of our late Congressman Don Young. And Lori, thank you for the moment of silence that you provided for all of us. Thank you for recognizing him today. I will tell you, I miss Don every single day, and maybe even a little bit more now that we are in the midst of appropriations season. I'm processing more than 1,200 spending requests right now, and I really miss my buddy Don, but his presence will be long, long felt beyond any one individual project. I do want to acknowledge the many sponsors that have made today's luncheon possible. I think when you look through it, it really is a who's who of everybody in this state, all those who are making good things happen for Alaska, good things happen for jobs for all Alaskans. So if you look at the program, as you see the title of my address, if you will, today, I set a theme of Alaska's resource contributions are just a beginning. Just a beginning, because I want to take a few moments this afternoon to focus on how that meshes so well with RDC's mission of growing through responsible resource development. And I say that this is just the beginning as we're approaching how we're able to access our resource wealth, because I truly believe that that is just it. And some of you may be thinking, well, that's overly optimistic, Lisa, given where things stand right now, an administration that we are pushing against every single day. You're saying, well, okay, how can you possibly feel optimistic? Trust me, I get it. I live it every single day. We're 18 months now into an administration that has been against us on just about everything related to resource development. And I don't need to tick off the litany here because you all live with it, but it includes the 1002 area. It includes the NPRA, the offshore Arctic, Cook Inlet, the Tongass, Ambler, public land orders, and you could probably add some more to your list. And yet, you think about it, you could hardly pick a worse time to be anti-development. The world is emerging from a pandemic. Demand is reviving. There's a land war in Europe provoked by an unstable nuclear power. There is significant production outages in places like Libya, and in many other countries, autocrats are using the revenues from their exports to enrich themselves and endanger the world. So at a time when we really need clear-eyed realism, the Biden administration has largely refused to recognize Alaska's plentiful resources. They're working to close off access to our lands. They're looking to close off access to our capital markets. They've suspended and canceled leases, the lease sales, permits, rights of way, and in turn, many of the opportunities that are needed to create jobs and to help build our state. And like you, we're all deeply frustrated by all of it. And yet there are some areas that we've broken through. And in a year where the world has changed dramatically and perhaps even forever, I'm going to continue to remain optimistic here about our future because the value of our resources is increasingly undeniable. The administration can push back on a lot of things. They can delay a lot of things. But the value of the resource is undeniable. So let me go into a little more detail on this. Last week, we celebrated the 45th anniversary of the first oil moving through the Transalaska pipeline system. Table's sitting right over there. Suzanne is nodding. 45 years is a good run. We appreciate that. And the great men and women, everyone at Alyeska has done a great job at keeping it operating safely and reliably. But our reality is TAPS is only 1/4 full right now. But between the good work that Hilcorp is doing to revitalize Prudhoe Bay, Santos' efforts and progress up in Pica, the exciting developments that Conoco has in the NPRA, we are on track to add hundreds of thousands of barrels to TAPS each day. We have that potential. A lot of that, we know, depends on ConocoPhillips' Willow project, but I am confident it will be approved. We are expecting to see that supplemental EIS any day right now, literally any day, and I fully expect the record of decision later this year, as has been indicated. And believe you me, this isn't happening by accident. It's happening because we've been working it. We haven't been sitting in the back benches heckling. It's happened because we have engaged the administration at the highest levels and really working to convince them that this is the right thing to do. This is the right thing to do not only for Alaska, this is the right thing to do for our country. So when the time comes, I would encourage all of you, everyone in this room, to comment in support of Willow and to highlight its importance to Alaska and the nation. Because we know full well its opposition is well organized, they're deep-pocketed. You saw the article came from the Washington Post, but it was reprinted in the ADN just this week. And there's a quote there from an environmental attorney who said she hopes, quote, Willow dies by 1,000 cuts, and then claimed this is a, quote, dying industry in Alaska. Well, folks, not on my watch. Not on my watch is that going to happen. I want to make sure, I want Alaska to be the very last place in the world where a barrel of oil is produced, not the first to go offline. So we are in this, and we will continue to be in this for all the right reasons. We need the Willow Project and others to go forward. Conoco has flyers at their table with more information, I'm told. It kind of walks you through how you can make your voice heard during this comment period. So I really would encourage you to stop by there. But Willow's not the only positive for us on energy right now. As a result of the infrastructure law and my Energy Act, which Lori mentioned, There is substantial assistance on the table, and that's going to help to lower the cost of a natural gas pipeline that I know the governor is going to be speaking to, and that so many are working so hard on. And it's going to help us deploy projects that will help to lower the cost of energy throughout our state. It's also going to help us pioneer these technologies that we are seeing just emerge. So if Alaska wants to be a hydrogen hub, if Alaska wants to be that carbon hub, or lead the way on marine energy, as I think that they should, lead the way on geothermal energy, as I think that they should, or on small modular reactors, we now have those opportunities and more that are right in front of us. We also look to mining, which perhaps has the most potential of any industry in our state right now. Global mineral needs are skyrocketing, we all know that, and Alaska is that storehouse of just about everything out there, whether it's gold or silver, copper, graphite, rare earths, platinum, on through to zinc. You name it, the odds are pretty good that we've got it. We've got 6 major mines in the state right now, but we're going to need to double or perhaps triple that to help meet the growing demand. So I've been working on, and it's now law, the legislation that I introduced, the American Mineral Security Act. Billions of dollars we put on the table through the Infrastructure Act that will help build out our critical minerals base. $500 million that we secured for the Defense Production Act. These should all help Alaska projects get off the ground. We've added or asked for an additional $400 million more in this appropriation cycle. So we are pushing on minerals. Down in Southeast, timber. Timber, highly valued industry that has just struggled, just been smothered by policies out of Washington, D.C. for decades right now. It is unbelievable and really unacceptable that in our nation's largest national forest, the Forest Service puts virtually no timber up for harvest. And the revocation of the Tongass roadless rural exemption absolutely does not help. We don't give up on that. We have, though, completed the Alaska Mental Health Trust Exchange, which will make available an estimated 201 million board feet. That's going to help us get through until the second growth, quote, wall of wood is ready to harvest in earnest. But it's been tough on the forest, on the timber side, and we recognize that. Tourism. Tourism has been that bright spot and certainly that growing sector of our Alaskan economy, but they had a brutal couple of years with COVID, and we're all glad that things are finally looking up for tourism. People are eager to travel. I'm sitting next to them on the airplane as I'm coming home here, and they've saved up their trips during COVID. They're excited to be coming back. They want their dream vacation, and that means they want to be here in Alaska. And the industry is primed for growth. We know now, certainly, how to work with the CDC, how to work with Canada to make sure that cruise ships are able to reach their ports. After we passed the Alaska Tourism Restoration Act last year, now we're seeing the real challenge for us is workforce. And we're seeing that throughout all sectors, but we're certainly seeing this so acutely within the tourism sector, and it's just finding people. I'm a big proponent of local hire, getting more Alaskans into the workforce, but we also need to ensure that more visas are able to fill those areas for job opportunities and openings where they need to be. So we're continuing to work on that. We're certainly feeling that within the fisheries. This is a tough one right now as we're trying to make sure that we've got that workforce. We're going to be celebrating some massive returns for salmon in Bristol Bay, but many of our Kainuk rivers are not going to have that same good fortune, and we know that. We know that our crab populations are in trouble. We're not quite sure what's causing the declines here, but we got to figure it out. we've got to figure it out, and that's where it comes down to really understanding the research, the monitoring, the data that is out there, so that we're making good, wise management decisions. But we have to be doing everything we can to make sure that Alaskans are able to fill their freezers, provide for their families, as well as to provide for the world's growing middle class. So much going on in these sectors. But we've also got these emerging sectors that are worthy of celebration, too. Alaskans set a goal for a $100 million mariculture industry within 20 years. I think we're on a good track to meet that, thanks to companies like Seagrove Kelp, Blue Evolution, Barnacle Foods. Mariculture is really in an extraordinary position right now to help strengthen our coastal communities and fill some of these gaps that are created by federal burdens on other fronts. Another area that I think is exciting, and the governor and I were mentioning it ahead of the lunch here, is agriculture. As we know, we're still importing about 95% of our food, but we have here in this state the fastest growing agriculture sector and unprecedented opportunities to grow more here at home. So whether it's a farm up in the valley, whether it's a reindeer farm, whether it's a small business like Local Greens, this is an industry that can scale and make a difference. I've been working on the federal side to fund what we call micro grants, agriculture micro grants to help seed local projects. We're going to be targeting next year's Farm Bill to help provide further support there. So I guess what I'm saying is, Lori and Layla and Carrie, you're going to need a bigger room to accommodate everything that's going on with our growing economic base here in this state, and I think that that's a good thing. So I've talked a lot about reasons for optimism. I think it's important that we focus on that. But none of this comes without effort. It's just not going to come because we occupy a special place on the globe. It's not just going to come because we have the resources. It's not just going to come because we've got great people. It comes with effort. And what I've just described means a lot of new projects. It's going to take serious and sustained efforts from all of us to make them a reality. For one, we need more infrastructure, plain and simple. So that's why I helped to write, to negotiate, and then pass into law the largest core infrastructure bill into history that we've seen. It's been derided by some as some kind of a Green New Deal, but I'll tell you folks, it is a great deal for Alaska. Don Young saw that, and he worked it on the House side to get this bill into law. But as Lori has mentioned, we've already seen this infrastructure bill bring actually over $2 billion now to Alaska, more to come. And it's more to come for roads, for bridges, for faster broadband, for cleaner water, for cheaper energy, for new ports, for improved ferry service. We're funding critical needs in places like Nome and Denali, down in Seward. And these projects translate into better quality of life for Alaskans, a better experience for those who visit, and a new generation of associated development. But beyond infrastructure is access. You have to be able to access your lands. You have to be able to access your waters. And we see that on a daily basis, that access is threatened like never before. Governor Dunleavy is probably going to be speaking to this, but he's right. If we can't access our federal areas, every industry will suffer, and so will countless Alaskans. So this is a fight we've all got to engage on all fronts, to preserve what is ours, to stop initiatives like the 30 by 30, which would truly shut down our economy. And that's why we've been pushing so hard. I've been pushing hard back in Washington for this sportsman's access provision in our public lands bill. We didn't give up on the 40-year fight to open the 1002 area. This is why Senator Sullivan and I are planning on on introducing legislation when we get back that would revoke the public land orders. It's why I support the state taking it to the federal land management agencies over submerged lands and navigable waters. You just can't sit back on this. I can't sit down as we're talking about resource issues before this crowd without talking about the permitting process. We have to have an objective and an efficient permitting process for all projects to follow. So we've seen with the Biden administration the NEPA rollbacks taken us exactly in the wrong direction. We did manage to codify the executive order on one federal decision in the infrastructure law, which is good. We were able to permanently reauthorize the Federal Permitting Council, which is good. The mineral security language that we have put into place, into law now, addresses permitting and allows for timelines to be put in place. But we've got those in place, but it's going to be difficult to keep this administration accountable if they won't put these authorities to good use. So we've got to make sure that there is that level of accountability and stay on it. Because if this administration doesn't implement it right, we need to make sure that the next one will. And as part of that, we need the environmental review process to remain part of the permitting process. Now, it's no great secret in this room or across the state. I opposed the Pebble project. I supported the Army Corps' decision to deny its permit in 2020. But I also object to what EPA is doing through the proposed determination that it announced last month, because it's a departure from the process that every project in our state deserves a chance to go through. I am concerned about precedent, the potential next targets after this one, and I want and we need a fair and consistent process for all who seek to develop Alaska's resources. Now, the final aspect that I want to hit on, just about done here, but it's a recognition that in order to succeed, fundamentally, you got to look to the approach that is taken. As I mentioned, we got a lot of headwinds that we've been bucking up against. But we've got to be willing to work with anyone to do whatever it is that we can to advance Alaska's priorities and interests. And a lot of what's going to happen over this next year is this really unremarkable, unsexy, day-to-day grind of legislating. As the ranking member on the Interior Appropriations, one of the more senior members of that committee, I'm working to secure directly hundreds of millions of dollars in investment for Alaska. And I'm also working to ensure that agency accounts can support and help expand resource development within our state. And in the midst of all of this, we just got to keep pushing back, continuing to push back against federal overreach, which has been a constant struggle, and we recognize continues to be that struggle. But our best option is to work together. We got to figure out how we work across party lines. We have to figure out how we build support with those who can help prevent the worst from advancing. And this is an area, quite frankly, where my friend, the current chairman of the Energy and Natural Resources Committee, Joe Manchin, has been a great ally for the state of Alaska. He gets it. He's on the other side of the aisle. Let's work with those who get us, who understand us, who want to try to help advance Alaska's interests. What I know we can't afford is to sit back, just try to say, sit out this whole administration, or perhaps reduce ourselves to working with only one side of the aisle. Maybe that's politically safe, but I think it's downright dangerous for Alaska's future. We're going to make it through the Biden administration. And we may take some hits, but we're also going to have some very real wins. Given what's happening around the world, the abundance that we have here in this state, and the determination of the people here in the state of Alaska, our future is as bright as the summer solstice. We are just getting started, folks. We got so much to do, and I look forward to doing it together with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa, for your very thoughtful comments. I know it was no mistake that you touched on each and every one of the resource industries that RDC represents here today, and we really appreciate your tireless work to hold the line during the current administration. And so now I'm going to turn over the microphone to Layla Kimbrell,